Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Masterdom podcast. I'm your host, as always, Stephen Murphy. Joined tonight by the usual rugby crew of Westy and Sam. We've got some rugby to talk about. And I'm rocking my Calvin gear for the first time on the pod.
You look very good, Steve.
Westy, that was a perfect tee up.
Start over. Let's go back again.
Do the joke, Westy. Do it.
So when our first came online in his Cavan jersey, I said, I guess we should be calling this episode Cavan a Laugh.
Cavan a Laugh, which I ignored the advice of that and went with Master of None. Who knows? Sure Cavan a Laugh could be Spotify #1 right now. Who knows?
I'm sure that Cavan jersey definitely has a tag still in the back so he can return it after the show.
Yeah. When the new one comes out, I'll be like, I want to return this for...
I'd say Cavan jerseys are the most returned things in Elvery's history. It's like every time there's a new one out, they just return them and get the new one.
Cavan jerseys are one of the nicest jerseys going, though. We're not very good in the pitch, but we look good.
Is that like...
a lot to be said for that.
It's like a rare jewel sort of thing. The rarity makes them look better, is it?
Yeah. We're like Halley's Comet. That's, you know what I mean? It's a rare beauty, but when you
isn't you're only in an All-Ireland final every 10,000 years?
I think that's being generous.
Being in an All-Ireland final and losing an All-Ireland final are about.
We're not here to talk about Gaelic or Cavan's misfortune, Sam. Okay, you Dublin prick. All right, we're moving on from that. Right?
We all know I'm only Dublin when it suits me.
Yeah, exactly. Right, we're here to talk about a bit of ruggers. Ulster versus Leinster, the final of the weekend. Cavan jersey from Ulster. Didn't go too well. I think we all wanted an Ulster win. We didn't get it, unfortunately. But we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it all. Ulster started this game really well. Looked incredibly physical. And then score a try pretty much in the 4th minute with your man Hume making a lovely break, leaving Kelleher for dead. At this point, Westy, when we watched this game together, we were like, oh my God, this might be happening.
Yeah, I think Ulster definitely started it with the right mentality. You know, they were really aggressive. Their defensive line was really quick. Their line speed, and the break from Hume, the man's only 22. It was really, really good. Really kind of exciting stuff. I really just think that they couldn't match their own pace after half an hour. You know, they made a few bad decisions. I think maybe they got a little bit too confident and they kept going for the tries. When they really should have just the key to beating a team like Leinster, you have to keep the scoreboard ticking over.
We talked about this during the game, and look, if it works, you look like a genius. But when it doesn't work, then you kind of feel you're left with egg in your face. But there was a couple of times where they ignored very kickable penalties and went for the corner. And when you're at that stage, I think they were 10-5 down. To get to within 10 points to 8, you're still within. You're one score away. You're a converted try from taking a decent lead. I think when you're the minnow in the final, which you very much are against Leinster, I think you're right, Westy. You just need to keep the score, but keep within. Give yourself a chance with 20 minutes to go or 10 minutes to go. And Ulster, ballsy decision, albeit didn't. It backfired on them a couple of times. Sam, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was an enjoyable game, first half especially. As a Ulster leaning neutral, it was fun to watch at the start. The belief came straight away with that early try. What a try to start off with. But I just think that, like you said, Ulster had a game plan where they went out and tried to kind of play like no holds barred rugby, and you can't really fault them because it's been over a year since anyone had a game plan that's worked against Leinster. So you might as well try something. It's the big stage, it's the one-off game, it's the chance to do it. And it looked for 5 or 6 minutes like it was going to work, and then in the getting to half time, they were still in it, and I still kind of went, if they come out with the right mentality, maybe change up a little bit here or there, it might happen for them. But Leinster just proved too strong, and as they have all season for even for most of last season, they just were steamrolling teams. Their just ability to go up the gears seamlessly and effortlessly it's so hard to play against. And poor Ulster being on the end of that in a final, but I don't think they disgraced themselves at all. I just think that against Leinster, if Leinster continue to play like this, I don't think there'll be any memorable finals, any memorable upsets for the next few years. They look like they're just chugging out and churning out brilliant standard of players, young lads coming in, playing finals now, getting that experience of winning, and it's just going to breed a good winning mentality there. Like it's so hard to compete against. I just, no one has come up with a plan to beat it outside of cheating the salary cap and buying the entire England squad. Like, so that's it's unfortunate. It was a good game for the first half, and then I got a bit sick of it in the second half because it became inevitable. But not like, fair play to Ulster for giving it a go instead of trying to consolidate and box kick and do it that way. At least they went for it.
They did box kicks, but actually Wesley pointed out, when we were watching the game together, they did it quite smartly in some areas. Like they would make a decent break, and Matchison would do the box kick while Leinster were retreating, like pretty quickly, rather than letting them set up.
But that's quite like what I said Cooney had been doing all season, where like other teams have box kicked. It wasn't the issue wasn't the act of kicking it from the back of a ruck. The issue I had with Munster the last day was the fact it was that telegraph, set your stall, have your runners box kick. Like Cooney's been doing it all season, like really quick, low trajectory box kicks that catch the retreating defense off guard. Like that's I have no issue with that happening. It's the manner in which Munster did it. But like I think Ulster have a better game plan from that point of view, and at least they gave it a go and they tried to play a bit of rugby. And if they go into the game, like I know we're going to get onto it, but if they go into the Toulouse game with Toulouse playing the way Twitter would lead me to believe they're playing, with massive like no holds barred rugby, it could be a really exciting game next weekend. So
yeah, well, I want to bring up a talking point because we mentioned this. Obviously, Ulster not deciding to take those penalties and going to be aggressive. But let's talk about kind of why. I've seen an example. I was watching the highlights again today. On the 34th minute, they win a penalty, pretty much very kickable distance. Well, Billy Burns didn't have a great game, so whether he wasn't feeling it or not, I don't know. But your 34th minute, they kick to the line to get the line out. Leinster actually nearly steal the ball, but they give away a penalty. Again, they give up a very kickable score at that stage to kick back into the corner. They win the line out, but they go back and forth across the field a few times until Billy Burns actually throws a terrible pass and it gets knocked on. At that stage, it's like the 38th minute. So you've wasted only 5 minutes. The lads are tired. Like Coetzee went off very early. I don't know if it was because of a knock or because he was just exhausted. But that's the back. When it doesn't work, that's the problem. You've tired out your entire pack, and you're not anywhere near to Leinster on the scoreboard. Whereas you take that 3 points early, you get the ball back, you're 2 points away, you're kind of conserving energy. Like, why do you think, Wesley, they do that? Is that just to set the tone? Is it a case where Billy Burns may not be confident? Is it a case Ian Henderson returning captain, he's like, I'm going to set the mark here, we're going for a line out, let's put a stamp on the game here. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I think maybe I'd say the first conversion been missed probably has an impact on, if a kicker is really, really, if any player is really kind of excited and confident, you're not going to stop them from doing what they want. If the kicker's taking control, again, if it's Cooney, they probably do take the kicks because Cooney says, I'm taking the kick. Maybe it's a case of Billy Burns not stepping up and saying, lads, I'm taking the 3 points.
But that's really, that's like, I'd like to believe that's not the problem. It probably is the problem was Henderson just overruling, but that's really disappointing to see because Burns has been captain since the lockdown twice.
Yeah, I'm not even saying that Billy says it and Ian says no. I'm saying, like, I don't think Billy Burns is the man to stand up and say, I'm taking it.
Yeah, but that's what's disappointing for me is, like, as your out half who is been named captain twice, you'd love to think that he would be chomping at the bit for every opportunity, every chance to kick. And is the fact that Cooney's kicked ahead of him, even when the two of them have been starting for an entire year, does he not believe in himself as a kicker? Like, maybe that's the case. Maybe he's just not a confident kicker. But, like, if you're an out half on a team in a final and you've been captain for a couple of weeks leading up to it, like, your Rodgers, your Sextons of this world are going over and grabbing the ball out of the forward's hands and saying, I'm kicking this. Like, that's what makes their ice cold mentality. It's what makes them, the revered players they are. Like, that's
well, even
parcel of being it.
Second half kicks off, they win a penalty pretty much straight away, and they kick it, and they go 13-5 up. Like, Ross Byrne looked way more comfortable in this game. Billy Burns didn't look comfortable from the get-go.
Yeah, he didn't have, like, even in his gameplay, he didn't have a great game. There was one or two, like, just terribly delivered passes. And look, everyone has a bad pass now and again, but his reaction to it wasn't hitting the game by the scruff of the neck. It was just, continued on along the same trajectory, I think. And I think it kind of showed a bit this weekend when you take him off and bring Madigan on. People were expecting big things from Madigan, but like Madigan is still playing a really deep game. And yeah, the ball was moving quite quick, but there was nothing really too creative happening with it. And I think that's really apparent that Madigan's played little to no rugby in the last 3 years. Not since Bristol were in the Division 2 Championship. Yeah.
Well, you'd watching the pre-game stuff, you'd swear he was like Ireland's number 10. All the coverage is about Madigan.
But that's the way they've sold it ever since he signed the contract. It's been like Ireland international signs for Ulster, not lad who can't make the Bristol team gives Ireland another crack.
Yeah. But as well, I think what we know as well is with Ulster, out the field, very, very willing to try, nice set moves, set pieces, kind of, throw the ball around. And then when it gets sort of to Leinster 22, and I don't know if this is a case of Ulster kind of tightening up or Leinster's defence just sort of, getting better, because Leinster's defence was immense throughout this. Like Van der Fleer was everywhere and he got the man of the match, deservedly so. But they did seem to slow it down. They did seem to kind of go back to the basics when it came to actually in the 22. Do you feel like teams do that when they get to like opposition 22s, instead of doing what got them there, they stop and try and go back to say like, pick and goes or forward, drives off the first ball? Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, well, that's something I highlighted a couple of weeks ago here. It's been a huge issue with all the provinces, Connacht included in the last, not this season, but the previous couple of seasons since Pat Lamb's kind of last season, and like Ireland especially, has been expansive rugby between the 22s and absolutely nothing expansive in the 22, just hitting it up, single phase play, taking it from the back of the ruck and diving at ankles and taking it straight from the scrum half and diving at ankles. And they spend 20 minutes camped in the 22 and everyone's like, oh, relentless, got the try. And I was like, yeah, but you look at some of that Southern Hemisphere rugby where they go to the 22 5 times in the same space of time and score twice. And then people are going, oh, well, they were in the 22 5 times and they only got 2 tries out of it, whereas Leinster were in the 22 once and they got a try out of it. So, yeah, but Leinster were there for a combined total of like 10, 15 minutes. And these Southern Hemisphere teams are there. And if it doesn't work within a minute, it's over. But they have 5 or 6 attempts at it. And that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have with like that Joe Schmidt era Irish rugby, that all the provinces have fallen under. They've all been doing it. And I sent a message to you lads, and I hate complimenting Leinster, but James Lowe's try was a perfect example of what I like to see. Two little hits up, and then Gibson Park throws a great pass flat on the line, a little bit wide outside the channel to Lowe, who runs it in, and it was brilliant. It was a scrum half and a winger using the space that's created in the 22. And I don't think Irish teams and Northern Hemisphere teams in general use their hands in the 22 enough. I think that there's too much attritional game, too much probably some sort of statistic about holding onto the ball and not letting the other team score, and it really wrecks my head. It's horrible to watch as a spectator, and like, I know that you're in the game to win it, but it's also is a spectator sport, and there's those of us who go week in, week out. It can be quite disappointing to see brilliant rugby being played by like the likes of Carty or the likes of Freddie Burns or whatever, or Billy Burns, and then getting into the 22 and just stopping, and the forwards taking it and like going inches and inches and inches for a space 10-15 minutes.
Sam said that for years at games, any game we've been to or any game we watched. Like it has been present in Irish rugby for ages, and like the reasoning behind it is obviously like it's schoolboy rugby. It's you pick and go, you pull them in, and eventually you'll have an overlap. But this isn't schoolboy rugby. Everybody knows that. Everyone's aware that's what you're trying to do. Like they're nominating the same men for the rucks each time. They're not going to pull in their wingers to join a ruck. And it's definitely so much easier to see now after having spent the last 2 months watching, as Sam said, the Super Rugby. Like I know that I texted you guys, or I think I tweeted it, like after 60 minutes of the Super Rugby, each team had spent about 4 or 5 minutes inside the opposition 22, and we had an 8-try game.
Yeah.
Like you're maximizing the gains from your trips to the 22, the time spent there. Whereas, as you say, Ireland are happy to, Ireland and Irish teams, and it's not just us, Northern Hemisphere teams do it as well, but we're happy to stay in the 22 for 10 minutes and count that extra 8 minutes of game killed as time that opposition don't have to score against us.
Yeah. Yeah, you make some solid points there. Little did get caught napping a bit on that James Lowe try as well, but it probably
I
again,
just think that it was
expecting
smart. It was smart play. Like it's the scrum half seeing a player outside him and believing in him and giving him a pass flat at pace, allowing him to do what he does best. James Lowe's a try scorer, so like I think that no one's really going to stop him there.
Well, in fairness, watching the highlights again today, Ross Byrne runs a lovely decoy run at pace from deep that I think draws a lot of people, including probably Little in. And then when the pass does go wide, he's just not expecting it. So it was lovely to watch. But half time, it's still 10 points 5 to Leinster. Ulster very much in the game, but they score a 3 points early on, and then Billy Burns kind of continues his kind of bad day at the office by throwing an intercept to Robbie Henshaw, who runs to kind of half the field to score, trying to oppose. Who did he used to play for, Robbie Henshaw?
Buccaneers in Athlone.
Oh, after that.
Don't know.
I was watching it. Wesley's like, oh, damn it.
Hashtag not my Henshaw.
Not my Henshaw, yeah. But that was pretty much game over then. Ulster showed nothing after the first half that, they showed nothing dangerous, nothing that they were going to score a try. After the 5 points they scored in the first 40 minutes, they didn't score for the rest of the game, which is disappointing. After starting so sprightly, but look, we'll have to give credit where credit's due to Leinster. Obviously, an incredible team. Caelan Doris was just immense again. Like
Where's he from again?
Lacken.
Well, there's a Lacken in Cavan, just to clarify, not that one, right?
It's also a Bala and Tipperary. That's not what I'm talking about.
All right, okay, cool.
There's a Ballina in Cavan as well, though, isn't there?
There is there is, yeah. There's a Balagna, not a Balagna.
That's the way we say it back home. Ballet.
Yes, there is. There's a GH at the end of our ones though, because you're in Cavan now. So but yeah, Leinster's bench coming on. Like you've Johnny Sexton, Scott Fardy, you've just got Luke McGrath. It's just not fair. I know Ulster brought up. We have to discuss Cooney here because we've always been big Cooney supporters on this podcast. We were calling him Start for Ireland since this podcast really began. But he's not been at the races the last couple of games. Matchson started this game ahead of him. You can say it was tactical, but you could argue over the point as well that it was on form. Matchson come on the last few games and made a difference and upped the pace and changed the whole point of the attack. Is he carrying a knock, do we think, Westy, or is it just kind of his standards have been set so high the last couple of months in Europe that it's not working?
I think he did. It was reported that he had a knock over lockdown, but I mean, he came out the week before the Connacht match and was like, "No, I'm 100%. I'm back." I think it's unfair to put it all on Cooney. I think like he has pulled the team out of like the pits of despair in certain games, but you need smart decision makers around you. Like you need a pack that's giving you a platform to perform. You need a 10 who's making the right decisions. Like. Again, like nobody's saying, "Oh, Matheson was terrible," when Billy Burns is, dropping passes and throwing intercepts. I do think Cooney's not quite at his form. Probably locked down. It is probably just a case of maybe that lightning streak of form that he had's been interrupted and he can't get back to it. But like there are other problems around it. Like just swapping Cooney out for Matheson, like it was clear it didn't really have the desired effect.
Now, I was very good though. I thought he played very well.
I thought he was very good, but I mean, it still didn't. Like they still only scored once. Scored one try in 20 minutes and didn't score again. Like I was really surprised, as you said. Like second half, Ulster really weren't that good. And like when I saw the bench, I was like, oh no, they have a plan here because they're going to bring on Marty Moore, Jack McGrath. I think it was Treadwell on the bench as well.
Jordy Murphy was on the bench.
Jordy Murphy was on the bench as well, and Madigan and Cooney. I was like, oh, this is going to be a big kind of switch. Last half an hour is going to be intense here. Like. And I just don't think the bench had the impact that they thought that they wanted it to have. I mean, it was never going to beat the Leinster bench. Of course.
But this is the thing: if you're going up against a normal team, it's probably would have an impact of the bench. But Leinster are bringing up Player of the Years and World Cup winners off their bench, so not quite the same.
World Player of the Year, Scott Fardy comes off the bench. It's just
and Johnny Sexton.
And Johnny Sexton, sorry, and Scott Fardy come off the bench.
Yeah.
I also think though, we're getting kind of back to the Cooney thing is. Like Cooney all season has been their playmaker for Ulster, which is a little bit of an unfair pressure to put on a scrum half for an entire season. Like he's brilliant and he's he'll get that form back. There's no doubt about it. He's a great player, but it's a bit of an unfair pressure to put on him. He has been their go-to like moments. There's been a lot of times where he's won them games. He's played out of his skin. He's kicked the winning kick. He's had moments of magic that bring other players into it. And, if he's carrying a knock like that, it's up to the rest of Ulster to show that the rest of the team also deserve to be in the final, and the rest of the team also deserve to be where they were. I thought, they were poor and looked very unfit against Connacht coming out of the lockdown, himself included. Like Marmion, absolutely, Marmion had a field day that day, and I just don't think they've been really at the races since. So it's it's quite frustrating for that to happen, but it's times like that in a final and a one-off game where the rest of the squad need to kind of turn around and say, you know what, like Cooney has gotten us out of some binds this season. He's kicked some great kicks. He's had chips over the top and regathered them himself, scored tries. He's had offloads that have been magical. He's been playing as a 9 and a 10 for a lot of the season, and it was up to the rest of the team to step up and do that for him. And Mattson is an unbelievable player with a huge amount of experience, and though played well, I don't think the rest of Ulster have been really at the races since the lockdown. Even the Edinburgh game the week before, it took a miraculous comeback for them to come into it like that. They've not been that on fire pre-lockdown Ulster. I hope they can get it back for the weekend, but I'm not filled with a huge amount of hope, a huge amount of confidence.
No, I agree. Again, a couple of the more notable players also, I thought McCluskey showed great power, great strength in a couple of his runs. Thought Stockdale was quite good under a few high balls. Looked decent going forward, looked strong. The Leinster side, obviously, I think pretty much there was a couple of standout players. Their pack is incredible. And they just don't really make mistakes, do they? They're just sort of, again, they're just so used to winning. They know how, like James Ryan comes back after a long layoff, plays great. Compared to, I think Ian Henderson looked like a player who was, again, how I think you said as well, Wesley, how he was match fit after that much time off. I don't know. But kind of looked at, whereas James Ryan didn't really look like that at all. And I said, Caelan Doris is he in? Well, especially if he's a good Champions Cup quarterfinal, semi-final, final. Is he in Lions contention?
Definitely.
I think if he stays playing at 6, he is. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think the move to 6 has been genius for them.
Yeah, well, they can afford to do that, which is always.
But I think a lot of that Leinster team, realistically on the lines, if Jack Conan has a good season, you could see 4 back rows from that Leinster team on the Lions tour. Like they're so stacked in the back row, it's ridiculous. Like it's verging on unfair. And I know they'll talk about their own academy system and how they brought the players through, and that's all well and good, but they have more than a starting team worth of world-class back rowers. So, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 4 of them, 5 of them at least in Irish contention, and with that comes Lions contention.
And Dan Levy's coming back too, which is great.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately for Ulster, all credit to them to get into a final, and a really good first half. They were competitive, but Leinster just too good. So congrats to Leinster. We will say that. Well, maybe I'm the only one who actually will say it on this podcast, but congrats to Leinster. I don't want this to become a Leinster bashing podcast.
I know your listens will go up by about 1 when you start apologising to Leinster, but they go by 10.
Hey, they go up. No, we don't talk a lot about Leinster here because everyone else fecking does, and we all know how good they are. It's not fun to talk about how good Leinster is. It just gets boring after a while. You know what I mean? I like my teams to have a bit of spunk about them. Lose occasionally, but we've unbelievable weekends of rugby coming up, lads. 2 cracking games Saturday and Sunday. The European Champions Cup quarterfinals Saturday. We've Leinster Saracens and Claremont Auvergne versus Racing 92. Leinster Saracens, this is going to be, there's a real bite to this game. I feel I can't remember which player came out from Saracens but saying we're not scared of them one bit, because they're the last team to beat them. Obviously Owen Farrell being a big loss to this team. What do we think, Sam? Are Leinster obviously hot favourites going into this?
I think they'll have to be favourites. Yeah, Saracens, since the lockdown, since a few players have gone on loan for a season or 2, and they got a few players have left. Farrell's injured. Saracens haven't been as impressive. They're still an unbelievable team with serious talent, and probably the only team I could see putting it up to Leinster. They beat them. They're the last team to beat them. Depends on what they go with at 10. They could have Good in at 10, and that'd be fine. That'd be good. But Leinster can play all those players that they rested at the weekend. Still, they're just so stacked. I think think it'll be extremely hard for Saracens to beat them. But Saracens might want to go out with a bang. This could be the last year in the Premiership for a couple of years, just with the going down, and then like they'll be tipped to come straight back up, but they have to comply with like wage caps and stuff. They might just say feck that and let a few players run down their contract and then go back up. I don't know how it's going to work, but I think they'll
When
put
you
it
say
to them.
comply with wage, you mean just follow the rules? Like
Yeah, well, see, the thing is there's no wage cap in the championship. So they only have to comply with the wage cap for the Premiership for 2 years to get back into the Premiership. So they could take a year off complying and just absolutely run riot in the Championship. Let some of their Lions players rest for almost a year. There's talk of a couple of players going on loan to South Africa or New Zealand or Japan as well, just to get them a bit of game time pre-Lions. So I don't know how it's going to work for them, but it'd be nice to see them go out, play Leinster like they have something they really want to prove, because that's the only way that they're going to beat Leinster. Leinster, I think, just look too strong.
Westy, we see Manu Vinipola, the cousin of Billy and Mako, coming in to replace Owen Farrell. I'm not a big Premiership follower. Do you know much about this lad and how good he can be?
Yeah, I think this has kind of been his breakthrough season for them at Saracens. He seems to be pretty capable. He's still young, not really as experienced as you'd want going up against Leinster, but the name alone says it's just heaps and heaps of potential.
Yeah. What about you, Sam? Do you know much about him?
Just from anecdotally, I've watched a lot of the Premiership since the lockdown came back, just kind of following Bristol rugby more than anything. But they've lost to Wasps, they beat Exeter, had a close game against Gloucester, and then they lost to Sale. So it's they're playing well enough, but he definitely looks like an absolute raw talent from what I've seen, highlights reel and stuff. I'm not sure will they definitely go with him at the weekend. I think there's talk that they might go.
I see a couple of articles tipping him to be starting. So
yeah, well, if he starts, at least bring a physicality and bring a bit of a pacey running style and stuff, and it could be something to make Johnny Sexton think anyway. How many times has Sexton played Farrell? They know each other inside out. They played 10, 12 together. So a new face might just give something to think about. Could be the making of them.
Just want to say, Manu Vinipola was born in the year 2000. So, feck him and everything he stands for. I hope he knows.
Old, isn't it?
I know. I keep thinking that's 10 years ago. It's not 20. I think we all agree. I think Leinster will have enough to get this game, but I'm expecting at least 2 yellow cards in this game. That's going to be my tip of the week. Let's start a betting podcast.
A pool.
Let's a Ponzi scheme.
No, I think it's interesting. I think it's really hard to judge Saracens on form because the Premiership schedule is insane. They're playing 2 games a week, so they're effectively playing 2 different teams every time they play. I think if this game had been played pre-COVID, again, I think Saracens had the better team, but just in all the changes they've gone through at the minute, I think Leinster probably looking like the more likely team.
Second game that Saturday, we have Clermont Auvergne versus Racing 92. Racing 92, just by Twitter clips alone, seem to be just in incredible form. Finn Russell is doing Finn Russell things. It's amazing that man held Scotland back for so long. And now look at him. Look what he's doing now. So Finn Russell, he will be going back to Scotland. I think that's pretty much agreed now, right? Because he has to. Well,
I'd love to see him go back to Scotland this year to be in with a shout for the Lions, because I think he's a fantastic player. I love the way he plays rugby as well. I think it's so exciting, and the idea, the chances of having himself and Sexton and Farrell on a Lions tour, there's so many combinations you can do. You could have Farrell at 12 and either Sexton or Russell at 10, or even Sexton at 12 and Farrell or Russell at 10. It opens you up for 2 playmakers so well. I think that it would just be ideal to have them, especially against South Africa. It would be such a fun style of rugby to play against South Africa. It might be.
Yeah. Can't imagine Sexton and Finn Russell would get along. Seem like 2 very different persons.
Yeah. Sexton takes everything very seriously.
Yeah, I feel Finn's probably doing offloads. It's only
the second beer, man. Calm down. But we're doing warm up for the match, so come on.
Yeah. In training, when Finn flicking the ball around, Sexton, so why aren't you doing something 100% correct?
And Finn's calling the tops off party when they're doing their kicking practice. Sexton's what the fuck?
So we're telling John Sexton to refer to him as white chocolate. Sexton's like, no, I'm not doing that. But I'm looking forward to this just because I'm very excited to watch Racing play and Clermont Auvergne. But Racing just, Curtly Beale, obviously his hearing is tomorrow, but I think we all agree. I think he's going to miss this game unless some incredible charity work is revealed in Curtly Beale's past. Who knows? Maybe he helped an old lady cross the road a couple of years ago. Who knows? We don't know. But Westy, Clermont Auvergne versus Racing. I think you're going to give the nod to Racing here, or do you expect Clermont to come away?
I'll give the nod to Racing, I think, because I'm really annoyed at Clermont because I was super excited for Matsushima to be playing in the French top 14. Like from the World Cup last year for Japan, he was just unbelievable. He played, I think it was 8 minutes in the Lyon game, and he pulled his groin. And anytime he was near the ball, he was phenomenal. I think he would have been a real danger man if he was available for Clermont. But yeah, no, Racing, I think they have the squad depth. Again, they have the form, I think. Yeah, I go with Racing.
Sam?
Yeah, I can't see past Racing. I don't watch too much French rugby, but from what I've seen, I'm looking here, their results are, if you look at their results, are all over the place because they've just been off for so long. But I can't see anyone really stopping them from a Clermont point of view. So,
are Racing good enough to take on a Leinster?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
They probably would be. It's hard to tell. I'm so out of touch with French rugby now since the lockdown and stuff. But I think so. I think Racing.
And you hate the French as well. Remember?
I think Racing, Saracens, Leinster, and Exeter in a good run of form at the moment, and pushing in this potential who can snatch and grab the league while Saracens are away, sort of thing. So they're kind of coming good. So it's opening up for a good finish to the tournament anyway. It's going to be interesting no matter what happens. But it looks like, when you go in PlayStation and you get to the final boss, but you have to defeat all the crappy bosses before it. That looks like what Leinster are going to have to do. They're going to have to go through 3 finals to get to the final, so. Which
is good for us spectators. But
yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting tournament.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that game too. Sunday then, Toulouse versus Ulster. I think before lockdown, we all would have given Ulster a really good chance at this. I think, though, at the moment, I know they got to a final, but I don't think they haven't really played well they haven't played well for a full 80 minutes yet since the return. And by all accounts, as you said, Sam, Toulouse are in pretty decent form. So, Westy, are you giving Ulster much of a chance, especially after a final hangover?
I think Ulster, I kind of said it before the last game, and Ulster didn't win that one either. But Ulster, they should be hungry for this. There should be nothing needed to get you hyped for this, especially after the last 3 games they've had. They're actually, they haven't won a game since we came back. Well, sorry, they won the Edinburgh game, but losing twice to Leinster and losing to Connacht, I think they should be really hungry for it. But again, in the Toulouse team, I just think Toulouse team is so strong. Jerome Kano in the second row. Dupont and Entomac are probably going to be your halfback pairing. Colby on the wing. I just don't think as good as Cooney can be. I don't see Cooney and Burns outdoing Dupont and Entomac if they're half what they were for France in a World Cup.
Are we expecting Cooney to go back straight into the starting lineup?
I would think Cooney is the starting 9. Yeah,
I would think so too. But it'd be interesting to see what that selection is. And if they stick with Burns over Madigan, because you have to ask, Burns' performance in the last game, he did seem to, when the lights were on, he didn't seem to like it. And you're Champions Cup quarter-final here against Toulouse. So
yeah, I mean, Burns, I think it wasn't great, but I think Madigan be out of his depth against Toulouse. Would love him to prove me wrong. I think he is a great player. I just don't think
his hair was amazing, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm glad he's got I think he got actually the sides and back of his head shaved again at half time just to make sure there was no chance of stubble.
Super fresh. It was beautiful.
Impressive.
But Sam, what do you think? Ulster much chance?
I don't know. It depends really if we see Ulster fire. I maintain, I said it earlier, I don't think that they've hit any of their form since coming back. I think the Edinburgh game's a bit of an anomaly, make people think they were playing better than they were. It was a comeback. It was a great comeback, and they played well for parts of it. But they still needed to have that comeback. They were outclassed by Connacht and they were beaten well at the weekend. Toulouse are very, very strong players wise, but I'm looking at the 2 results since coming back in September. They lost Clermont 33-30 and they beat La Rochelle 39-23. So they're shipping points. Like there's points to be had for Ulster. And Toulouse are playing expansive, fun rugby because the players they have, the likes of Chesn Colby and stuff. So, this could be a really, really fun game to watch. It could be a high scoring, could be like a North-South Island sort of, 6 tries to 5 sort of idea. Not quite the same standard, but that amount
it's just
of
to clarify,
Shout out to former Connacht man Pita Aki, hopefully in the centre for Toulouse.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster as well. But
let's not compare it to the best game we've ever seen, Sam.
Yeah, no, I'm not comparing it ability-wise. I'm comparing it score-wise. I think that it could be a high-scoring game if both teams, like if Ulster come out and play the way they wanted to play against Ulster or against Leinster, and play that expansive game of rugby and good running, quick ball. Like this could be a really fun game to watch.
It's actually interesting. I kind of just to jump in there again. Like the French teams don't take the Champions Cup as seriously as we do. So, like with their schedule, with their condensed season finishing up as well, it's understandable to think that they might not, put out a first team. They might rest a few players. So maybe it could be Ulster's chance to get some confidence back.
Good point. Last game then Sunday evening, Exeter versus Northampton Saints. So I'm not going to even pretend to know what to expect from this game because, again, I'm not a big Premiership follower, but Exeter, by all accounts, are pretty informed. So, Westy, give us your deep analysis on this game.
I don't have much depth as I'm not as well versed on the Premiership.
No.
Exeter have been one of the really exciting teams to watch over the last couple of years. They're not necessarily a bank of well-known names, but they're a very, very impressive side, a very together side when you do see them play. Pretty good results. I think they beat Northampton the first week of September. I think they beat them by a score, maybe it was 2 or 3 points. So there'll definitely be an element of avengement there for Northampton. But yeah, I think that based on the limited knowledge I have of Exeter, I think it's an Exeter win.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, they're in the hunt for the league. They were beaten by Saracens the weekend, but I've been listening to a few rugby podcasts from over in England. The Premiership is all over the place in terms of teams playing full teams against second teams and second teams mixed with third teams playing against first teams. So you can't take any of the results too well. But I watched the Bristol game they played a couple of weeks ago and they beat Bristol, and it was a great game. They have like Cuthbert and Cowan-Dickey and stuff. They have some really fantastic players. I think that they'll win this at the weekend anyway. And if they make a go at it, they might see this as their chance to win the Champions Cup. Just with everyone playing such condensed fixtures, I think that this is like the chance for someone to just snatch and grab it. At some point, the condensed fixture list is going to catch up with a team, and someone very good is going to get injured. Exeter might look to take advantage of that, but I think on paper they'll win this one, but they wouldn't be my favourites after this.
Yeah, I think you're right there. We got 4 though quarterfinals where we really don't know who's going to win them. There's no clear favourites in really any of them, which is great, and it will help. When we're watching them for the excitement level. So I'm really looking forward to this. These couple of games this weekend. I'm sure as you two are. So we'll come back next week and we'll discuss whether we didn't really give predictions, but to see if any of our deep analysis was correct, Westy. You like deep analysis, so we'll see.
I'm an analyst.
Lads, thanks as always for joining me. You can keep track of the podcast on Twitter at Master of None Pod. Instagram, Facebook is also Master of None Podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, because I upload all these and a couple of snippets to YouTube, so you can keep track of it over there as well. So lads, appreciate it as always, and we'll catch you next week.
Talk then. Bye.